Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest, Chapter 104. When we last left our heroes, the Lucy-Kiria fight just had a glorious finale. Lucy was saved from her seeming death, thanks to a trick played by Gemini and Horologium. But with that, Lucy tries to fight on, and largely doesn't do a great job of it. She's still really mostly unable to stand up to Kiria, until Laxus comes in, able to break free of Kiria's strength cutting, with the argument that his strength comes not from himself, but from the bonds of the guild. But he takes a big hit that will probably be quite a negative impact on him in his upcoming rematch with Kirin. But for now, that gives Lucy the memory she needs to, or the kind of thinking she needs to get a new strategy. And what it is she combines the star dress of Gemini and Aquarius to create a bunch of water clones, including of her friends and everyone she's met. And I guess that includes Hisui and Yukino. And I guess because they all have the same type of magic, they're all celestial spirit mages, she's able to tap into their magic and use the Gottfried spell that only ever showed up in the Eclipse Celestial Spirits arc that I did not rewatch because I hated that arc, to get a reminder as to how Gottfried works in the past 2 weeks. But that arc sucks, so I'm glad it's in an actual good storyline. But with that, Kiria's down. Lucy's also down, as Gottfried damages her a lot as well. But yeah, with that said, that fight's over, so let's dive right on into Chapter 104, Blue Dimension. On our picture here is of Erza, cleaving in two with one stroke, she will smite the wicked. And as a reminder, as I recall, Misaki, who Erza is fighting, is known as the Azure Dragon? Is that right? Yeah, the Azure Dragon. Which, maybe this is a complete random coincidence, but it does remind me of FF14's Azure Dragoon, so we'll see if there's a relevance there. But the fact that it's Erza and blue, which Azure is a shade of blue, that all seems to be tied together. But anyway, we open where we left off with Lucy, whose normal outfit has reformed, interestingly enough, given how the only reason she had clothes was because of her star dress. I mean, it's for the best, but she is back in her old clothes. They're just torn up now. Kiria's naked, so I guess Laxus lost his cloak, like rip that cloak. And Laxus has this sort of like smile and his like satisfaction that Lucy won. And then suddenly he comes to himself for real, forgetting that like satisfaction, which is an interesting thing, I guess. But he grabs his head. What happened? My memory's all hazy. And then he like feels the pain from his cut from last chapter. And Virgo tells him, do try not to move. You have a deep wound. And Laxus looks around. Lucy and that Diabolos lady? What the hell happened? And Virgo, ever the glutton for punishment here, allow me to explain. You, Laxus-sama, were spanking my hindquarters. Go on. Feel free to continue. This feels, like I know this isn't entirely, it's very much in the same vein as Virgo's normal gag, but it just seems a little more extreme than we're used to from Virgo. More like something out of, like, the worst parts of Eden Zero, and not Fairy Tail. But Laxus just stops her. Yeah, I don't think that happened. But he looks over at Lucy. That enemy must have had crazy skill. You got real strong, Lucy. She sure fucking did. She sure as fuck did there. But we leave that bit alone, with Laxus just sort of sitting there, reflecting on Lucy's strength. And we cut back to deeper in the dungeon, where Natsu and Suzaku still are. Natsu's just fuming. Damn it! Where the hell do you go? Ignia! And Suzaku comments, how odd. You are a dragon slayer, yet you know not of his smell. And Natsu just snaps back, you don't either. Suzaku says, this was our first meeting. I cannot trace his scent. Okay, but like he already smelled him at the first meeting. He should be able to trace him with his scent now, right? I don't know. But Natsu just comments, it's no good. I can't smell him at all. He smells a lot like my dad, but... and Suzaku... Right, because Suzaku, unlike the first and third gens, didn't have a dragon parent in the same way that Natsu and the gang did. So Natsu just tells him, Igneal, the fire dragon. Been a while since I talked about him. And Ignia is Igneal's real son or something. Natsu also is like, I guess he hasn't really spent that much time with Ignia, so there's that sort of or something bit, like he's not really sure, but like, that's what Ignia says. And Suzaku comments, I see. And just then Happy comes by and they're reunited. Natsu! Happy! And Suzaku comments, cat! But Happy, I love this hug between Natsu and Happy is so good. Wah! I finally found you! But Natsu questions, weren't you with Lucy? This is bad. I was sure she'd be safe with Happy. But Happy just comments, this is Lucy we're talking about, so I'm sure she's fine. This feels like a bit Mashima maybe would have put in, like, before the Kiria fight. Like, it works here, but I could see, like, this bit being the, like, leading to the Kiria fight. Like, I'm sure she's fine. Oh, no, she isn't. But anyway, Suzaku comments, oh, dear. He places far too much faith in that cat. And then we get to what seems to be this chapter's big draw, the Erza Misaki fight. Because now we're finally back to them, and they're glaring each other down. And I do honestly kind of see an echo of this week's Eden Zero chapter with Elsie and Ziggy staring each other down. I don't know. Maybe I'm just seeing things. But let's hope this does not end for Erza like today's chapter ended for Elsie. But anyway, Gajil and Gray comment, I was worried about that heat, but... And Gray picks up, I'm more worried about Erza's thirst for blood. And Erza just calls to them, stay out of this, all of you. And the two of them sort of freeze there. And she requips into this, like, devil, like, demon, like, batwing armor. I will be enough. And Misaki just comments, oh my, underestimating me, are we? Of course, it doesn't matter if all of you come at me at once. But Gray comments, who's underestimating who? And Carla chimes in, but her magic, it's incredible. And Gray tells her, yeah, I got that. It almost feels like Laxus and Gildarts are about to square off. I mean, okay, first of all, here's my first complaint with that line. One, Erza's also, like you could have just said Erza as one of those people, right? Like, she deserves to be mentioned in the same breath as Laxus and Gildarts. Like, she's above Laxus, I think, right? Maybe not Gildarts, but I think she's above Laxus. So, like, you could say, like, Erza and Gildarts are about to square off. You don't have to, like, bring in two other unrelated people. But okay, whatever. I see your point. I'm rambling about nothing. Anyway, Misaki then tells her, if you truly want to fight one-on-one, so be it. You have 5 seconds to finish me off. And she casts a spell. She, like, sweeps her arm. And Erza? So she there's this sort of, like, almost looks like a digital effect. As, like, parts of her, like, sweep to the side. And she vanishes, stunning Gajil and Gray. Erza! She's gone! And Erza finds herself in this, I guess, the titular blue dimension. She seems to be underwater. Ugh, this is... And Misaki looms above her. Blue dimension. A world with just you and I. And Erza falls. My body is floating. My legs have no strength. And Misaki goes back on the attack. In this world, I am absolute. Blue stream. And it seems to be water, but maybe it's not water. Whatever it is, she throws it at Erza. Erza's, like, blown back by the attack. And she, like, flies. Ah! And then we cut back to Gray, Gajil, and Carla. And then Erza just falls back into their dimension right in front of them. Okay. So that's an interesting power set that our friendly old Misaki has there. And Gray yells, Erza! And Carla questions, what just happened? I thought they both disappeared. And Gajil notes, Erza looks banged up. And Erza gets up. She's still standing, but she's beaten up. And Misaki holds out her hand. That's 5 seconds. And then this pain, this like sensation seems to ripple through Erza, and she screams, "Gah! Ah!" And she's just torn up in pain? Okay. And Misaki goes on, 5 seconds in the blue dimension is approximately 5 hours here. Okay, so were they just like standing there for 5 hours? I'm confused. Ergo, a mere 5 seconds worth of damage becomes 5 hours of torture, and all the damage with it. Okay, so in her dimension, she can like extend the length of time you take damage, I guess is what's going on here. It's definitely an interesting thing. But the damage tears up Erza's armor, and Gray and Gagio run to her. Gray like cradles her. "Erza, hang in there!" And Gagio comes in. "What the hell just happened?" And Carla notes, So any damage sustained in the other world will be multiplied upon return?" And Misaki comments, "Well, you could put it that way. Now then, that assertive lady of yours can no longer fight. It's your turn now." But what can either of those two do that Erza couldn't? And Gray thinks, so once we get taken into her space, it's over for us? And Gagio just snaps, how do we defend against something like that? But Gray is just going to have to go for it. Looks like I'll have to start. And then someone calls in, wait! And all four of them, Gray, Gagio, Carla, Kiria, all turn. And it's Erza. Picking herself back up, bloodied, leaning on her sword. I told you. I will be enough. God, what a fucking queen. I know people love shitting on Erza for, winning fights and for this exact kind of thing. But God, it just hits sometimes. This is one of those moments where it just fucking hits. That's just a badass fucking panel right there. I'm not sure I can actually, manipulate the dimensions of a thumbnail for that to be the thumbnail. But if I can, that's the fucking thumbnail. Anyway, Carla notes, Erza! And Gagio looks, but with those wounds. And Gray tells her, that's crazy talk. But Misaki thinks, I hadn't expected you to recover from that. You are an interesting one indeed. Next will be 24 seconds. Pain equivalent to 1 full day's worth of torture. And Erza just glares back, 1 day? That's lenient. I've known tortures that have lasted far longer. Is that about Tartaros? Because she was tortured for a while during Tartaros, right? I mean, probably also something happened at back at the good old Tower of Heaven way back when. That might have been a 24-hour... No, I thought it was Jalal that got tortured at Tower of Heaven. It's been a long time since I've read that arc, so I might be misremembering some of the details there. Either way, they head back to the blue dimension, as Misaki says, that mouth of yours, I'll have to shut it for good. And they're right back in blue dimension. And Misaki sort of tells Erza, this place, my world, is one where I and only I may come in contact with my enemy. This is just an incredibly, OP power. It's sort of ridiculous. She can just take someone to a world where only she can attack. I don't know. I'm curious what sort of counters are going to be there to stop her. Misaki just readies her next attack. It's already over for you. And Erza just glares at her. Blue stream! But she disappears, confusing Misaki. She dodged it? She couldn't have. But Erza tells her, using the same magic twice was your mistake. This space may hinder my movements, but my armor can still move fine. Okay, that's an interesting workaround. And Misaki thinks, excuse me, could it be? She's magically influencing her armor. And Erza finishes the thought, to move myself. Heaven's wheel, bloom and blot. And she makes a good attack on Misaki. Misaki, for the first time, we're seeing damage on Misaki's face, but it's not a lot. As Misaki is still able to fight back. Do you expect to defy my world? To be continued. Okay. So So I'll have to look up how exactly the Heaven's Wheel armor works again. I mean, I can see the, like, the justification in my head, right? That, like, Erza can't fly, the Heaven's Wheel armor can fly, therefore, with the armor, it's the armor moving and not Erza, so this is kind of just the same thing as her normal flight in this armor, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like, that seems to make sense to me. But I might be missing something important there. Yeah, the wiki notes that flight is one of the armor's signature powers. That and the multiple sword thing she used with the whatever it was that happened during the end of the Battle of Fairy Tail. Not read that arc in a very long time. But so yeah, I can like follow the way this plan works. Like the logic here is that it's Erza's magic that allows the armor to use its flight ability, and so it's not her moving, it's her magic. So yeah, it's a good fucking move. You know, there's a lot of the Erza complaints of the original series, I think, were based in this sort of Erza's victories never seem to make any sense. And I think 100 Years Quest has generally been very good about giving her fights that are both like narratively and emotionally satisfying and also make sense. Like this is a fight that you can follow very easily. You know, it takes like it's been a while since you've seen Heaven's Wheel, but the basic concept is easy enough to follow, right? Like she's flying with her armor, so it's not her moving; it's the magic. And maybe I'm spending too much time on this. Maybe I don't actually have to defend this. Maybe everyone already agrees this makes sense. But I'm doing that because it's my channel. But anyway, let's talk about the rest of the chapter because there's also some good stuff here. While I don't like the spanking gag and the Laxus section, I do love Laxus just commenting how fucking badass Lucy's ended up. Because, you know, we are and we will always be Lucy Heartphilia stans. And then we have some more, like, I find the not too happy bit really cute, but it's also, like, largely irrelevant. It's just sort of kind of there, which isn't bad by any stretch of the definition. It's just sort of like, now Happy's here, and they're still on the way to find Ignia. And then we move on to the fight. And the fight's real good. You know, I talked at length about how much I kind of enjoyed this fight. There's some good shit going on here. From just the absurd power that, like, Misaki has. And then Erza finding a, you know, viable workaround. Like, it's a smart plan she has, the flight ability. And it works. And so I'm guessing that, like, for the rest of the fight, it's going to be sort of like Misaki realizes that the blue dimension isn't really going to work anymore now that Erza has a workaround. And we're going to be back in the real world for the bulk of the fight. That's my best guess. But either way, that fucking I told you I will be enough panel, that's so good. That's such a good fucking panel right there. Like, Erza's a fucking badass, and she fucking shows it there. That's just a cool fucking panel. Yeah, I'm excited to see where we go from here, because that Erza Misaki fight is kicking up now. Moving into full gear, so to speak. And I can't fucking wait to see how all this plays out going forward. So with that said, I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe. You know, do whatever makes you happy, you know? And as always, your life is your own, okay? Bye!